Here we are with another episode of A Clever Dev, and what I have for you today is the Material UI Drawer, and we are going to perfectly size and position it. So the drawer is specifically this section over here, but I've got it positioned under this app bar, which is pretty commonly searched for in Google. That's how I get the idea from a lot of my videos. I just look at what people are searching for in Google, or YouTube, of course, and make my videos from that, because that seems to be what people need help with. So here I'm going to hit the responsive button. You see how the drawer has a different size on the 375 wide screen, and this icon is here to open and close it. And when I flip back, then here we are back at a permanently popped out responsive drawer. So if you're interested in seeing this and learning the positioning, and there's really a lot of styling that went into this, a lot of positioning and just a lot of tweaks to get everything exactly how it needs to be. If you're interested in seeing that, then stick around. Here we are with a lot of the styling and even some of the components stripped out of the drawer. And so what we see here is we have the drawer, we have the app bar. What we've got in the content area is just a main element. And so we really got a lot to fix here in order to get this drawer underneath, so to speak, from a z-index perspective, underneath the app bar. And we need to strip off the backdrop here that we see. We need to make sure that everything is mobile responsive, of course. So really getting the drawer to play well with an app bar is not something that just happens out of the box with Material UI. So let's go over to the code here, and I'll show you what I've already got set up. And this is using Material UI version 5, just as info. But you'll notice I've actually got make styles in here. Typically the MUI version 5 way of styling, so to speak, is either using the SX prop, which very similar to using classes, but just a little less boilerplate. Kind of looks like inline styling also. And also using styled components. Those are the two primary ways. The make styles is hook is still available, and the reason that I'm going to use that today is some of my components or elements are still just living in React world, like this main element, and so the SX prop is not available for that. So I'm using class name still, and given that, then it is a little more boilerplate, but that's okay. It's not too much. So let's dive into the code here. First, let's look at the elements that we have. And we've got a wrapping div. I've stripped classes off of these, but I left the placeholder there just as a reminder for myself of the classes we need to create and where they're going to go. So we've got an app bar sitting inside of this div. The app bar has a toolbar inside of it. It's got an icon, so we're going to want to hide that icon on desktop. On mobile, on a screen smaller than 375, then we'll make it available, and so that they can click and make the drawer, maybe it's like a nav drawer or something like that. They can click, make that drawer pop out, and use it as they need to, and then make it disappear again. So we only care about that on mobile responsive. So after the app bar, we have the actual drawer. There's a number of variants for the drawers, and they have different styling applied. So there's multiple ways that we could go today and get a functioning drawer that is under, so to speak, underneath the app bar. I'm going to use the temporary variant. There's a little bit of transition duration. I just went ahead and made a constant for that of 1000 milliseconds, and we'll need a class on that drawer. And let's see what else we have here. We have our main content area that's just got a little bit of text inside of it. So let's go ahead and fix the first thing that I see as a problem. Even if we got this app bar sitting on top of the drawer, it would actually cover up the home. And so it took me a long time to figure out why that is, but it kind of is a silly thing. The app bar has a toolbar in it. So a quick fix, maybe it's a little heavier on the DOM, but a quick fix is simply to put a toolbar that's empty inside of our drawer. So we'll see that that is shifted down. You saw that shift there. So now our content will sit nicely at the right Y value. Just basically one toolbar width, or height, excuse me, from the top of the screen. So we did that there. Let's go ahead and add that to our main content as well. And there we go, looking a little bit better. So we can't really see the shift yet with our main content. Oh, yeah, we can. So we can see that that main content got shifted below the app bar. So far, so good. We can see we're going to ultimately have to put some margin left on that content there. Somehow we're going to have to do that. So anyway, I think that is all that I wanted to show you other than setup. We wanted to get that toolbar added in, wanted to call that out. So I mentioned why I'm using classes and use styles and make styles. One thing that is important here is I am using this use media query hook, and that's really handy. It's detecting the screen width, and I'm just using it to set a boolean greater than 375. In my use effect, I'm detecting when that changes. So if it's false, then we're smaller than 375. If it's true, we're greater than 375. And if it's true, then, or whatever that value is, I'm setting that to my set open const. So that's just going to force it to be open sometimes. If it's greater than 375, it forces our drawer to be open and visible. And if the screen size is less than 375, then kind of the default, you could say, is that it will be false. But then we're going to have that icon button down here that has a click handler on it that will simply just open or close our drawer. So that's only on responsive that's available. So we have a little more control there because we have limited screen size. We want the user to have more control. So with that said, really it's just time to dive into the multitude of classes that I had to use to get everything where we wanted it to be. So I'm also going to just dive in before we start applying any of those classes, and I'll show you part of why this was rather complex to do. Well, it's a little hard to select anything with the backdrop still on there. We'll have to make that backdrop disappear. But there's just a lot of classes. The drawer doesn't really, a peculiar thing about the drawer is that it doesn't really sit sequentially in the DOM like we might expect. So we see the app bar, we might expect, okay, the drawer is our next component in our code, but it's not really the next component in the DOM. It's kind of separate from the app bar, from the main content. We'll be able to see that a little bit better once we get the modal off of there. But anyway, if you want to do, if you're trying to do something like we're doing today, you really just have to dig into the DOM, first to see the styling, and second to see the element positioning, because when I realized that the drawer was not where I expected it to be, I realized that we're going to have to do quite a bit more work in terms of our styling. There is another const that I've set that we're going to pass into these styles, and that is drawer width. So on desktop, or really anything that's bigger than 375 pixels, then I want to use that drawer width for my drawer width and a few other values such as the margin. However, I also want to use a different value then. I just want to set the drawer width to 100% if we're smaller, if we're narrower than 375 pixels, 376 pixels. So what I'm going to do, and I admit I'm going to cheat just a little tiny bit, I'm just going to take our theme object and I'm going to pass in a drawer width value on there. So then we'll have our theme available in this use styles. It's a little different from MUI v4 versus v5. Honestly, in v4 the theme is just a little bit easier to use within make styles. In v5 we have to access it just a little bit different, so like I actually had to use this use theme hook. There may have been a better way to do it, but this was a way that I found. Anyway, so I'm going to set this drawer width, and I'm going to set it to either I'm going to use this greater than 375 and just say, hey, if that's true, use that drawer width constant. If it's false, we'll set our width to 100%. So anyway, that's attached to our theme. You might say that's not great coding style, maybe I should pass it in as a second prop, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that for now. And then, so with our use styles, we're passing theme, we're actually passing it as a prop instead of accessing it. It used to be that you could simply access it like this. Maybe we need to wrap in a theme provider or something like that in order for it to be available there, but for whatever reason it just wasn't as easily available in version 5, so I'm passing theme as a prop. So ultimately we'll get the same difference, same value out of it. So anyway, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class for our menu button. Let me make sure, yep, so I have that waiting here, so we know we're going to pass in a class. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll get to see an example of using the theme right off the bat. So here's how we have to access it now. We have to use a arrow function and access our theme through it. Let's leave that off. All right, so, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself here. It is very difficult for me to code and talk at the same time. There we go. Let's take a look, make sure I don't have any typos in that, give it a minute to figure itself out. I think it got confused. Nope, there it goes. Alright, so just a simple menu button, margin right. Okay, so we've got that theme, accessing it, theme.spacing. So in the SX prop in V5, I could have just said margin right 2. I didn't need any of these shenanigans. But like I said, I couldn't use SX on, for example, my main element or my main component, and I just didn't want to deal with having both SX and make styles. I thought that this would just be a little bit cleaner. So anyway, let's go and apply that menu button and take a look here, make sure that, yeah, let's add it to our icon button here. Get rid of that. Oh, of course, I'm so used to doing SX because it's just this boilerplate that gotta remember the syntax here. Okay, so we've got our menu button. It's on the Appbar, so we can't see it for a minute, but let's go ahead and do this setup. So then the other thing that we want to do with this menu button is sometimes we actually don't want to see it, right? Like here when we are on a desktop. So I have this handy CLSX. It's just a little utility that lets us add easy conditionals within this class name area. So I'm going to say that we need to do some kind of hide if the greater than 375 is true. So let's make a little hide class, real easy. So we've got our hide, and I'm just going to say display none. So let's go attach that. Let me think about this for a minute. Okay, I think that comma's going to go inside of there, and we'll just have I think I can just do it simply like this. There we go. So I think that syntax is good. Kind of started in a bad spot because I like to actually be able to, you know, code and verify. So we'll leave that for now. That should be all that we need to do for that button. Let's go to our Appbar next. That one we'll be able to get immediate results from. So really, primary thing we need to do here is set the z-index. And what we want from it is that it's sitting on top of our on top of our drawer. So the theme really nicely has a z-index object on it, and that object is populated with different components, default values for different components. So the z-index for drawer is already on there. That's the default that the drawer is going to get. I don't think I'm going to need to set a z-index on the drawer itself. I think it'll just have that value by default. So I know for my Appbar, kind of a simple trick, take that drawer value, add 1. And it is not sitting on top of it yet. Oh, of course, gotta actually add the class to our Appbar. And that might help. There we go. Now it's looking like something. So that's also, we're gonna wind up getting rid of this modal here. Or excuse me, the backdrop. That just comes with the drawer component by default, but we're going to wind up getting rid of that. But already you can see, first our Appbar is sitting at the highest level, so it's on top of our drawer. It's also on top of that backdrop there. So that's good. Let's see. Let's go ahead and dive into the drawer. There's some pretty heavy styling within the drawer. And I will just simply call the class drawer. And before I forget, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down to the drawer component, and I am actually going to, where was it? Did I go past it? There it is. And I am actually just going to go ahead and add classes.drawer. That way, no silly surprises where I go to refresh and I'm not seeing what I expect to see. Alright, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the width. Anytime we need to access the theme, gotta use this. Oop, not that, this. So I mentioned I attached the drawer width to the theme. And I guess if I was using TypeScript here, it would not like that. So probably better to go with a secondary prop being passed in for that drawer width. But I actually originally did this article on my site in MUI v4 and just on a whim wanted to convert it. So it took a little while, honestly, to get the make styles working in v5. So anyway, passing in one prop was hard enough. Passing in 2 props, a little bit challenging there. So taking this little shortcut, admittedly. Let's see. Let's go ahead and add let's go ahead and kill the backdrop on it. So to eliminate the backdrop, we actually have to target this backdrop class. The actual styling value is simple, it's just display none. But digging into the DOM and finding the backdrop root, that was a little bit challenging. So now we see that backdrop is gone. Let me actually just comment that out, see if we can quickly see the backdrop in here. So it helps that it's easy to select. We see our, let's see, our drawer stylings here. Yes, we can already see this make styles drawer class applied on our drawer component, or in this case we're on the DOM, so on our drawer element. And then right beneath that we see that MUI backdrop root class right here, MUI backdrop root. So that's how I'd done some research for this. I'd already figured it out. So I knew I needed to select that, and keep in mind it was a child element, so I'd have a space here to get my selector working right, and simply set display none on that. So anyway, got that reapplied. We're coming along here. We've got our backdrop stripped. We've got the Appbar in the right Z index. Obviously we need some work on our main content area still, but we're getting somewhere. So anyway, we've got our drawer in place. Let me think about this. One thing that you don't want to do is I initially attempted to set background color on the drawer itself, but that's not actually what you want to do. You want to set it on the paper that is a built-in nested component of the drawer. So the drawer is composed of MUI paper. So I'm going to create a simply named class of drawer paper. One thing I want to do is I want to make sure that our paper isn't going to have any issues. I don't know if this is really necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. Set the paper width the same as the drawer width. No surprises then. And let's set that background color that I mentioned right here. So I'm going to just use RGBA, make it kind of a grayish value. And I'm going to set the value to 0.2. That's the opacity value. So what that means is our main content, if it doesn't move at the same time and keep its width and so on, then there might be times where it's actually visible underneath the drawer paper. So what that means is, like mobile responsive, for example, when our drawer is popped out or expanded, then we need the main content with that text. This main content text, we need it to get kicked over to the right to get out of the way. So I haven't actually applied this drawer paper. Let's go down and do that. And we can set that. Let's see. We've got our paper props. I have to think about if it's going to go inside of there. No, let's actually put it inside of this classes. You might be able to accomplish it either way, but I'm going to say paper right here. Drawer paper. So this is just a handy little built-in prop that lets you easily pass classes to the underlying paper component. Like I said, probably would have been possible to pass it via paper props as well. But let's take a look at this. So here's what I was talking about with that text. Obviously, we're going to bump it over, so this isn't the exact situation I was talking about. But you'll see later when we actually have animations on our drawer, then this text can sometimes get underneath it. Just looks real bad. So anyway, we'll put a fix on for that. Next up, let's take a look at the drawer container. Actually, you know what? I don't think we need anything there. I thought about putting overflow auto on it, but I think if we actually set sizes on, since we've set sizes on our drawer, and we'll set the main content to have a margin left, then I don't think we need to worry about overflow. How about we go up and work on that content next? Actually, let's take a look at something. See how it's looking on responsive. Okay, so we've got that icon button that I mentioned before. So here we go. We're looking good. Our main content definitely needs some work, but we're looking better. So I'm going to go back out of responsive. Notice our icon is no longer there, so that's great. That's exactly what we expect. All right, getting this content class in place. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just get some default padding. Okay, so there's that. And an important thing, let's take a look again at our mobile responsive. You see that built-in, or that animation that we've got going on there? That was the result of this transition that I just already had in here. Pretty simple. They make it simple to get an enter and exit transition. However, for our content, we need a transition on it too, or at least we want one. It'll look nice. It looks a lot nicer if our content doesn't just appear and disappear instantly, but if it's got a transition that's similar to the transition on the drawer. And once again, this content is this interior main component and the text on it. I say main, it's literally an element that's called main. So let's work on that transition. And let's see, this one's a little bit more complex. Let's say it's theme.transition.create. This is just simply in the docs margin. There we go. Just had to dig into the docs to find this. So now what we're telling it is we're going to create a transition on margin, and what I'm going to do is set an easing value, and we've already got access to the theme here. We don't need to use the arrow function again to get access to it. Let's see, theme.transitions. So there's our easing, and we'll add a duration to that. So you remember, we've got this const that we already created, transition duration. It's what the drawer is using, so we will use it on content as well. And let's see, let's go ahead, set a min width. And this was a tricky thing. I might take the min width off and show you what happens if we don't have it. And we'll set the margin left. So we have margin left, min width. Let's take a look at what this looks like. And there we go. We see that our main content is actually bumped over with that margin value. And let's take a look at it on responsive. Okay, so we've definitely got something going on here that's not exactly what we want. So let's see if we can resolve that here. I think that we need to add a little bit of shifting to our content. So let's take a look. I'm literally going to call that content shift. And we'll add another one of these transitions. Let's see. Okay, we want theme, transitions, and make sure you get that S on transitions. I actually had a little typo up here at first. Theme, transitions, and create again, and we will set that. Once again, we're going to do that create on margin. And let's see. I'm going to do easing. Set this ease out again. Duration again. And I think that's all we'll need on this transition section. Once again, set that min width. And we'll set this margin left. So let's go ahead and go down and apply that content shift class. And we will apply that to main again, but we'll have it on there conditionally. So we've got classes content. Let's use that CLSX utility, and in this case we will say classes.content shift. Just a little bit different syntax here. This is kind of the more built-in way of doing it. And I'll say open. So what this is doing is applying content shift when open is true. So you remember open is getting set. We have that use effect that is detecting if the media query value changes. If it changes, we update this open boolean. That open boolean will update our content shift. So let's see if that's looking a little bit better. Let's refresh that. I would say so far it is not looking better, so we'll have to figure out what we are missing. But let's take a look at it on desktop. Okay, so that's good. And I guess if you like it, then there's a nice little load animation on there. So let me go up and see what we might be missing. And it might take a little bit of debugging to figure it out. Let's see, we've got our content. Let's see. Probably what's going on is that we've got a bad margin left when we don't want it on our content. So let me think about that. Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. I actually want that to be 0. There we go. That's much better. So we wanted that margin left to be 0 on our content, and we're having margin left be controlled, actually get a value, only when that content shift class gets applied. So here, no content shifting, 0 margin. We want this to be, the primary thing that we're seeing. Drawer opens. We want that content to be shifted out of the way, because as you can see when it closes, you can see that this content has some opacity to it, and so we can actually see the text under it. And if you really wanted to, what we could do is we could get into the weeds a little bit more, the details a little bit more, and I could actually wait on this transition until this one has disappeared completely. That might be something kind of interesting to play with. But anyway, so here we are looking good. We've gotten rid of the backdrop. We've got our app bar where we want it to. Definitely the desktop is a little bit easier. So we've got our content where we want it to be. Can't think of anything else that we need to do to get this looking good. So I mentioned that there's multiple ways to do it. The way that I pursued controlled the width and the margin pretty tightly, and if I didn't have any opacity on my drawer, then, for example, I wouldn't necessarily need to shift my content out of the way. In fact, that's probably a more common design that you might see on mobile responsive, is that we don't see our content getting shifted out of the way. We just see an opaque drawer sliding right over it. And in fact, we can take a look at what that might look like. There you go. I just didn't like the color as well, but you can see it's kind of sliding over, just because it's got a faster transition in this case. It's sliding over the content there. So a lot of ways that you could go with this. Anyway, with that said, there are links to the full code and that article that I mentioned that I originally wrote in MUI 4, but I'm going to give it the V5 code also. And yeah, if you like this video, then please consider subscribing. Really keeps me motivated. With that said, I hope you have a great day.